And now I'd like to talk to you a little bit about regular studio maintenance practices and how often you should be doing all of the things that some of the other videos in this series have described. And it really depends on a few factors. How often you use your equipment. I like to say that if any piece of Pilates equipment has a full-time job, meaning between 30 and 40 hours of regular routine exercising done on it, that the equipment should be serviced fully every 3 to 6 months. I like quarterly, but sometimes every 6 months is easier to schedule and also easier on the budget. And so what that means is you'll want to have somebody or yourself do regular routine maintenance on your equipment. One, for a lot of liability insurers, they require it. They require maintenance logs. So it's important that you keep those logs and those records in case your insurer decides that they want to take a look at them. And so that means that you should be looking at your springs and the hooks and the clips pretty much every time a client gets on the equipment, because you're handling them and looking at them anyway. And as far as a reformer or some piece of equipment that requires maybe a little bit more maintenance, lubricating the hinges on the chairs and that kind of thing, you want to do that quarterly or even every 6 months. You'll want to check the straps to make sure that they are tight, secure, and the right length pretty frequently. Again, you're handling them, so you might as well check it out. The other factor, in addition to how often the equipment gets used, is where you live. Some climates require different types of maintenance and maintenance schedules. If you live in like a very briny, very humid environment, the springs can start to rust more frequently and faster, and maybe even fatigue faster than if you live in a drier climate, say like, Arizona or the desert. So you want to make sure that you're inspecting and looking at your equipment based on where you live and the type environment that you're in. I'm here in New York, and we have very significant seasonal changes. So even the use of excessive dry heat, artificial heat, and air conditioning in your studio can affect the way that the springs, the leather, and the other materials in the studio react to that kind of environment. Extreme hot and extreme cold can cause springs to start to make noises. That doesn't really mean that there's anything wrong with them, they're just loud. So if it's the winter and you have the heat on and you turn that heat off at night, and then you come back in and you turn the heat on again, those springs are very, very cold in a very hot environment, and they'll actually start to make noise because the metal of the springs is trying to adjust to its new climate. So the same thing goes for your actual environment or where you live. The Pacific Northwest has a lot of rain. I used to live there. It mists. And so that humidity in the air will cause the springs and the leather to actually stay a little bit more supple. But if you're in a very dry environment, you'll want to take a look at the leather and maybe even condition the leather straps more frequently than you might if you lived in a more humid environment. One of the other things to consider are the reformer wheels. Those wheels are natural rubber, and natural rubber degrades over time. It's natural. So the humidity will actually will draw the moisture out of that natural rubber and cause them to dry out quite significantly. And so over time, years, I'm not talking about months or even a year, but you'll want to make sure that you set yourself up on a regular, predictable spring and wheel and or maybe even strap replacement schedule, so you can know when it's going to happen when you need to, and then you don't run into you might not be able to run into any issues while you're operating your studio in whatever climate you happen to be in. I hope that helps, and thank you.